Look, everyone thinks Rigby's just this chaotic mess who screws everything up at the park, right? But honestly, I think we're all missing something here. Sure, he's impulsive, he's definitely immature, but there's actually this weird kind of genius hiding under all of that madness. I'm not talking about book smarts or anything like that. I mean his emotional intelligence. The way he improvises solutions and how he just gets things on this intuitive level that nobody gives him credit for. So here's what I want to figure out. What if Rigby is actually way smarter than we think, just in ways that don't look like traditional intelligence? I'm gonna dig into some key episodes and show you why this unconventional brain might actually be one of the most underrated things about the whole show. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So here's the thing about Rigby that most people completely miss. Everyone sees this chaotic raccoon who works as a groundskeeper at the park and thinks he's just some immature slacker who causes problems. But honestly, that's such a surface level take that it's almost insulting. Think about the world Rigby actually lives in. This isn't your typical workplace comedy where the biggest crisis is running out of coffee. We're talking about a universe where magical keyboards can send you to the moon, where British taxi cabs can literally come to life and hunt you down, where death gods show up for arm wrestling matches, and where interdimensional portals open up because someone microwaved a burrito wrong. Most people would have a complete mental breakdown trying to navigate this level of absurdity on a daily basis. But Rigby, he just rolls with it. That's not stupidity. That's a completely different kind of intelligence that nobody wants to acknowledge. Look at The Power episode. Sure, Rigby steals a magical keyboard from a wizard and uses it recklessly, accidentally sending skips to the moon in the process. On paper, that sounds like a classic Rigby chaos, but here's what people miss. When everything goes wrong and the batteries die on the moon with a monster about to eat them all, Rigby doesn't panic. He remembers his earlier conversation about ham boning and uses that ridiculous technique to actually save everyone. That's not luck. That's someone who could think on his feet and adapt to completely insane situations. The genius of it is that Rigby had literally been telling Mordecai earlier that ham boning will save your life someday, and everyone just laughed it off as typical Rigby nonsense. But when push came to shove, he was absolutely right. While everyone else was freaking out about the dead batteries and the giant monster, Rigby pulled out this completely random skill that ended up being exactly what they needed. That's the kind of unconventional problem solving that gets overlooked because it doesn't fit into neat categories. Then there's L.O. Governor, which is honestly one of the most psychologically intense episodes of the entire series. Rigby gets traumatized by a cheesy British horror movie about a possessed taxi, and his fear becomes so real that it starts manifesting in his everyday life. Most people would write this off as Rigby being weak or childish, but when you actually watch out how it plays, you see something completely different. The dude is literally being haunted by his own mind, seeing tire tracks on toilet paper, getting phone calls from the taxi, having nightmares where he's a tough guy named Fist. This is some serious psychological horror stuff, and yeah, he's terrified. But he doesn't just give up, he keeps pushing through. Even when Mordecai is forcing him to watch the movie over and over again, trying to desensitize him, that takes real mental strength. When Rigby eventually faces his fear head on and literally destroys what he thinks is the monster taxi with his bare hands, screaming, "The name's Fist!" and tearing the thing apart, that's not just conquering fear. That's someone who can tap into a completely different part of themselves when they need to. The fact that it turned out to be just a video store employee in a costume doesn't matter. Rigby found the courage to confront his deepest terror and came out of the other side transformed. The relationship between Rigby and Mordecai is crucial here too. They have this deep bond where they can communicate it almost telepathically during their crazy schemes, when they're doing their synchronized dance routines with the power, or when they're improvising their way out of supernatural disasters. They're operating on a level of teamwork that requires serious emotional intelligence and the ability to read people. Even if Rigby expresses it through childish antics, And here's where it gets really controversial. Rigby actually grows throughout the entire series in ways that traditionally smart characters like Skips never do. He eventually goes back to finish high school, develops a genuine relationship with Eileen, and learns to take responsibility for his actions. That's emotional maturity and self-awareness. Compare that to someone like Muscle Man, who stays basically the same impulsive character from beginning to end, or even Skips, who's wise but completely static. Skips knows everything, but he never changes or learns anything new about himself. Rigby starts the series as a selfish, immature troublemaker, but by the end, he's someone who can make real sacrifices for the people he cares about. That kind of personal growth requires a type of intelligence that's way more valuable than just knowing random facts or being able to solve puzzles. Regular Show thrives in a bizarre universe where instinct often beats intellect, and that makes Rigby's unusual intelligence all the more impressive. The evidence is everywhere. The show features interdimensional chaos, talking vending machines, time loops, and death gods. And Rigby somehow keeps up with all of it. In a reality like that, classic book smarts aren't always useful. Rigby's streetwise adaptability and emotional evolution suggest a real intelligence, even if it's messy and unconventional. The problem is, we're so obsessed with measuring intelligence through traditional metrics that we completely miss other forms of being smart. Rigby might not ace a math test, but he can navigate a world of pure chaos and somehow come out the other side still standing. That makes a special kind of genius that most people will never understand. Rigby's emotional intelligence grows slowly but deeply. He learns from mistakes and becomes more self-aware than most people expect. Look, Rigby starts as a complete mess. In Fortune Cookie, he literally steals Benson's good fortune and replaces it with bad luck. That's peak selfishness right there. But here's the thing, when everything goes to a mess and Benson's life falls apart, Rigby actually feels guilty. He confesses. He fixes it. Most people would have just let it slide and hoped nobody found out. That's growth you don't see coming. Trash Boat shows this perfectly. Rigby changes his name because he thinks it'll make him cool. But when everyone mocks him and he doesn't double down, he admits he made a mistake. He swallows his pride and asks for help. That takes emotional maturity most adults don't have. The whole situation teaches him that chasing trends to feel important is pointless. He learns to value himself without needing external validation. But the real proof is an Eileen flat screen. Rigby knows where Eileen keeps her spare key. He waters her plants when she's away. He surprises her by setting up her new TV. These aren't grand gestures. They're quiet, consistent acts of care. Rigby remembers the small stuff that matters to people he loves. When Eileen's terrible roommate Joanne threatens to ruin everything, Rigby doesn't back down. He stands up for someone he cares about, even when it gets dangerous. Here's what's wild about Rigby's emotional development. He actually listens to people. When Mordecai tells him that his name change is stupid, Rigby gets defensive at first, but then he processes it. He doesn't just dismiss criticism anymore. That's huge character growth that most people miss because they're focused on his mistakes. The biggest moment comes in Rigby's graduation day special. This episode is brutal for Rigby. He's facing his biggest fear, being seen as a failure. But instead of running away like old Rigby would, he pushes through. His graduation speech is honest, vulnerable, and inspiring. He talks about doing hard things and how they become less hard over time. That's emotional intelligence and wisdom. He admits he started going back to school just to impress Eileen, but then he realizes he was doing it for himself all along. What makes Rigby's emotional growth special is how realistic it is. He doesn't become perfect overnight. He still makes mistakes, but he learns from them. He gets better at reading people, at understanding consequences, at caring about each other's feelings. In a regular epic final battle, when the universe is literally ending, Rigby shows introspection and vulnerability that saves everyone. He remembers everything they've been through together and uses that emotional connection to help fix the timeline. The thing about Rigby is that he learns empathy the hard way. He hurts people, sees the damage, and then chooses to do better. That's more valuable than anyone who never makes mistakes in the first place. Rigby's emotional intelligence is earned through pain and growth. Rigby's emotional intelligence isn't flashy. It's the kind that builds relationships, fixes problems, and makes people feel seen. That's harder to develop than most people think. He learns to apologize genuinely, to put others first when it matters, and to be honest about his own flaws. By the end of the series, Rigby has deeper, more meaningful relationships than almost any other character. Rigby may act impulsively, but when the stakes are high, his instincts become a genuine strategic strength. Here's where people get Rigby wrong. They see the impulsiveness and assume he's just chaotic. But chaos can be strategic if you know how to use it. In Gary's synthesizer, Rigby accidentally destroys Gary's physical form by messing with his synthesizer. Most people would panic. Rigby problem solves. When they get to Gary's home planet and face the evil ruler David, Rigby doesn't overthink, he acts on instinct, and that instinct saves everyone. His chaotic approach breaks David's rigid controlling system. While everyone else tries to follow the rules, Rigby finds the loopholes. In Gamers Never Say Die is the perfect example. Rigby and Mordecai are on a treasure hunt, following clues from a video game. When they need to get through a crowded food court in a straight line, Rigby doesn't waste time being polite. He bulldozes through, knocking over tables and grabbing what he needs. It's rude, but it works. Sometimes strategy means doing what others won't. He sees the direct path and takes it. Consequences be damned. The genius of Rigby's strategic thinking is that it's unpredictable. In Fortune Cookie, even though his plan backfires, the basic strategy was sound. Swap fortunes, get good luck, nobody notices. It only fails because he didn't take account for magical consequences. But that's the thing about Rigby. He thinks outside the box so much that he sometimes breaks the box entirely. His plans often work precisely because nobody expects them. What makes Rigby strategically intelligent is his ability to see unconventional solutions. While Mordecai analyzes and plans, Rigby acts on gut instinct. In high-pressure situations, that instinct often cuts through complexity and finds the fastest path to success. He doesn't get bogged down in overthinking, he sees what needs to happen and makes it happen. Think about it. Rigby's approach to problems is basically controlled chaos. He throws himself at obstacles until something breaks through. That sounds stupid, but it works way more often than it should. In a normal world, this would probably be a terrible strategy, but regular show isn't a normal world. Rigby's chaotic energy matches the chaotic universe they live in. Rigby doesn't strategize like a chess master. He strategizes like someone playing a completely different game. And in a world full of supernatural weirdness, that's exactly what you need. Traditional strategy assumes predictable rules, and Rigby assumes the rules will change halfway through, so he stays flexible. Rigby's academic intelligence may lag, but his technical learning curve and intuitive problem solving are unexpectedly sharp. Everyone assumes Rigby is dumb because he dropped out of high school, but watch what happens when he actually needs to learn something. In Gary's synthesizer, Rigby figures out how to fix a complex alien device by experimenting with it. He doesn't read manuals or follow instructions. He pokes at it, tries different combinations, and somehow makes it work. That's problem-solving ability. When the device makes a horrible noise and breaks things, he doesn't give up. He keeps trying until he finds the right combination. His trial and error approach actually works better than careful planning would. Gamers Never Say Die shows Rigby's technical instincts are perfect. He can't photograph the pixelated map because the camera can't capture it properly, so he improvises. They'll bring the whole TV. When they need power, he asks Skips for a magical solution, which turns out to be a car battery. Rigby understands that sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. He doesn't overcomplicate things. He finds what works and goes with it. The real proof comes in Rigby's graduation day special. This guy, who everyone thinks is stupid, goes back to school and actually graduates. He learns geology by going to caves. He learns foreign language by going to China. He learns physical education by competing in food races. Rigby doesn't learn from textbooks. He learns by doing. His hands-on approach to education actually makes him retain information better than traditional studying would. Here's what's controversial. Rigby might actually be smarter than Mordecai in some ways. Mordecai overthinks everything. He gets paralyzed by analysis. Rigby just acts. In a world where thinking too hard can literally kill you, Rigby's approach is often more effective. What people miss about Rigby's intelligence is that it's hands-on. He's not going to impress you with vocabulary or math skills, but if you give him a broken machine and tell him to fix it, he'll figure it out. If you give him a weird situation and ask him to navigate it, he'll find a way. His intelligence is practical and immediate. In Trash Boat, Rigby navigates bureaucracy to legally change his name. Then he navigates it again to change it back. He understands systems well enough to work within them when he needs to. Rigby's technical intelligence is intuitive. He doesn't need to understand why something works. He just needs to make it work. In a world where impossible things happen daily, that kind of practical problem solving is incredibly valuable. The mistake people make is thinking intelligence only looks one way. Schools teach us that smart people are quiet, studious, and follow directions. Rigby is loud, chaotic, and breaks rules. But he gets results. He solves problems that stump everyone else. He adapts to impossible situations and finds ways to win. Rigby represents a different kind of intelligence, street smarts, mixed with creative problem solving and emotional growth. He's not book smart, but he's life smart. And honestly, in the real world, life smart often beats book smart. Rigby's intelligence is messy, unconventional, and sometimes accidental, but it gets results, and in the end, that's what matters. Now, before I tell you what Rigby's IQ is, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Alright, so after looking at all the evidence, the emotional growth, the chaotic problem solving, the weird technical skills, I think Rigby's IQ sits around 110. Now, before you roll your eyes and think that sounds too high, hear me out. An IQ of 110 puts you in the high average range. You're not a genius, but you're definitely smarter than most people give you credit for. And honestly, that's exactly where Rigby belongs. He's not stupid. He just is operating on a completely different wavelength than everyone else. Think about what an IQ of 110 actually looks like in real life. These are people who can think on their feet, adapt to new situations quickly, and solve problems in unconventional ways. They might not be the best at traditional academic stuff, but they excel at fluid intelligence, the ability to think logically and solve novel problems. Sound familiar? That's Rigby in a nutshell. He doesn't study for tests or memorize facts, but throw him completely into an insane situation and he'll figure out a way through it. When Gary's synthesizer breaks and everyone's panicking about fixing this complex alien technology, Rigby just starts experimenting with it. No manual, no careful planning, just trial and error until something works. That's fluid intelligence in action. People with IQs around 110 also tend to be emotionally intelligent in ways that don't always show up on traditional tests. They can read social situations, understand people's motivations, and adapt their behavior accordingly. Rigby's relationship with Eileen is perfect proof of this. He notices the smaller things that matter to her, remembers details about her life, and shows up for her consistently. That takes emotional awareness and the ability to think beyond yourself. The risk-taking aspect is huge too. An IQ of 110 often comes with this willingness to try things that more cautious people wouldn't attempt. Rigby constantly throws himself into situations that could go horribly wrong, but his instincts usually guide him through. When he changes his name to Trash Boat, it's a disaster, but he learns from it. When he steals Benson's fortune cookie, it backfires spectacularly, but he makes it right. That's someone who learns through experience rather than theory. Here's where it gets really interesting. Rigby actually performs better under pressure than normal situations. People with this type of intelligence often do. When the stakes are low, he's lazy and unfocused, but when everything's falling apart and they need a solution fast, Rigby steps up. In The Power, when they're stuck on the moon with a monster about to eat them, Rigby remembers ham boning and saves everyone. Most people would panic, but Rigby accesses their weird reservoir of random knowledge and makes it work. The adaptability factor is massive in regular show's universe. Traditional intelligence assumes consistent rules and logical progression, but Rigby lives in a world where magic keyboards can send you to space and fortune cookies can literally control reality. His ability to roll with absolute chaos and still function is actually a form of intelligence that's incredibly rare. Let me put this in perspective with other characters. Mordecai probably sits around 123. He's clearly more traditionally intelligent than Rigby, better at planning and analysis, more thoughtful in his approach to problems, but that higher IQ sometimes works against him. He overthinks situations where Rigby would just act on instinct and get better results. Muscle Man is probably somewhere in the 90s. He's not dumb, but he's emotionally blunt and relies mostly on physical solutions. His approach to problems is usually just hit it harder or make a joke about my mom. That works in some situations, but it's pretty limited. Skips is clearly above 125, probably much higher. Ancient wisdom combined with technical expertise and the ability to solve almost any problem. But here's the thing, Skips represents crystallized intelligence. He knows a lot because he's learned a lot over centuries. Rigby represents fluid intelligence, the ability to think and adapt in real time. Benson is probably around 115. He's competent, organized, good at managing systems, following procedures, but he's emotionally rigid and doesn't adapt well when things go off script. Compare that to Rigby, who thrives when things go off script. The controversial part is that Rigby's 110 IQ might actually be more useful in the world than Mordecai's 123. Traditional intelligence assumes you can predict and plan for problems, but in regular show's universe, most problems are completely unpredictable. You can't plan for a death god showing up for arm wrestling or a British taxi coming to life to hunt you down. In situations like that, Rigby's chaotic adaptability becomes a superpower. An IQ of 110 also explains Rigby's learning style perfectly. He doesn't do well with traditional education because it's designed for people who learn through reading and memorization, but Rigby learns by doing. When he goes back to school, he learns geology by actually going to caves. He learns foreign language by going to China. That's experiential learning, and it's incredibly effective for people with this type of intelligence. The emotional growth aspect is crucial too. People often think intelligence is fixed, but emotional intelligence definitely develops over time. Rigby starts the series as the selfish, impulsive kid, but by the end, he's capable of real sacrifice and genuine care for others. That kind of growth requires self-awareness and the ability to reflect on your own behavior. What makes Rigby's 110 IQ so effective is that it's paired with this willingness to fail and try again. Higher IQ people sometimes get paralyzed by the need to be right all the time. Rigby doesn't have that approach. He'll always try something stupid, fail spectacularly, and learn from it and move on. That trial and error approach leads to breakthrough moments that careful planning never could. The bottom line is that intelligence in many forms, and Rigby's represents a type that rarely gets recognized or valued. He's not going to impress you in a classroom or ace a standardized test, but if you need someone who can navigate absolute chaos, think creatively under pressure, and adapt to impossible situations while still growing as a person, Rigby's your guy. An IQ of 110 captures that perfectly. Smart enough to be effective, chaotic enough to be unpredictable, and emotionally intelligent enough to actually matter. But what do you think? Did I get it right? Or would you put Rigby's intelligence somewhere else? Drop your thoughts in the comments. You know what's wild? When everything goes to a mess, Rigby actually becomes the guy everyone starts following. I know that sounds crazy, because we're so used to seeing him mess things up, but hear me out. Rigby goes to the prom is the perfect example. His dad completely loses his mind, drives them off a cliff, and they're literally about to die. Everyone's screaming, his dad's having a breakdown, and Eileen's trapped in the back seat. What does Rigby do? He doesn't panic like you'd expect. He takes the wheel and saves everyone's lives, while actually doing some impressive driving. Here's the controversial part. In that moment, Rigby becomes a better leader than his dad, who's supposedly the adult in the situation. His dad, Sherm, has spent the entire episode treating him like a worthless screw-up who can't be trusted with anything. But when it actually counts, when people's lives are on the line, Rigby steps up and proves he's way more capable than anyone realized. The crazy thing is how he does it too. He doesn't just grab the wheel, he talks his dad through why he should let him help. When that doesn't work, he gets more assertive. When his dad still won't listen, Rigby finally just takes charge. It's like watching someone grow up in real time, and the driving itself, he's doing stunts and maneuvers that would make an action movie hero jealous. Flipping the car over chasms, dodging fallen rocks, keeping everyone alive while his dad is screaming instructions that would probably get them killed. What really gets me is the emotional intelligence he shows during the whole thing. He's not just focused on surviving, he's trying to repair his relationship with his dad while literally fighting for their lives. He tells his dad that even if he did get a big job or his GED, Sherm still wouldn't respect him because all he cares about is his car and Dawn. That's some heavy psychological insight to drop while you're careening down a mountainside. Space Escape shows the same thing, but with even higher stakes. Anti-Pops is hunting them down. This cosmic evil that can literally erase people from existence, and everyone's running around in panic mode. Colonel Rawls is doing desperate push-ups trying to buy time, and everyone else is following standard military procedures. Meanwhile, Rigby comes up with the balloon decoy plan. Think about how brilliant that actually is. Instead of trying to outrun or outfight something that powerful, he realizes that they could just trick it. It's the kind of solution that only works because he's just so simple and unexpected. A trained military officer would never think of it because it's not in any manual. Rawls is trying to use strength and endurance to buy time. Everyone else is thinking in terms of ships and weapons and escape routes. But Rigby thinks like a prankster and realizes that sometimes the best strategy is just messing with someone's head. And the execution is perfect too. They make Anti-Pops think Pops escaped in a ship, but it's actually just a graduation of balloon and tied to a brick with "Happy Graduation, suckers" spray painted on it. It's simultaneously the dumbest and smartest plan possible. It works because Anti-Pops is so focused on finding Pops that he doesn't stop to think that maybe the obvious solution is too obvious. But here's what really gets me. The group still doesn't give Rigby credit for being smart. Even after he saves everyone in the prom episode, his dad acts surprised that Rigby can drive well. Even after the balloon trick works perfectly and nobody starts looking for him for strategy advice, they follow his ideas because they work. But they can't seem to connect that to him actually being intelligent. It's like they have this mental block where they can't see past Rigby the troublemaker to recognize Rigby the problem solver. And honestly, that's probably because his leadership style is so different from what we expect. He doesn't try to take charge by being the loudest person or giving orders. He steps up when he sees people he cares about in danger. Think about how different this is from traditional leadership. Benson leads through authority and rules. Skips leads through knowledge and experience. Muscle Man tries to lead through intimidation and loudness. But Rigby leads through empathy and creativity. He sees what needs to happen and finds the most unconventional way to make it work. That's what makes him effective though. His leadership comes from wanting to protect people, not from wanting to be in charge. In the prom episode, he's protecting Eileen and trying to prove himself to his family. In the space episode, he's protecting his friends from something that wants to destroy them. He doesn't lead because he wants power. He leads because somebody needs to and nobody else is handling it. This is actually pretty rare. Most people either always try to be the boss or they never take initiative. Rigby reads the room and adapts. When things are going fine, he's happy to follow along and mess around. When things are going badly, he switches to solution mode. It's like he has this internal switch that flips when the stakes get high enough. And you can see how it changes the group dynamic too. People who normally dismiss everything he says suddenly start listening. His confidence shifts how everyone sees him, even if it's just temporary. In the prom episode, even Eileen starts supporting his decisions instead of trying to calm him down. In the space episode, everyone goes along with his plan even though it sounds ridiculous. It proves that being a leader isn't about having the right title or the most experience. Sometimes it's just about the right instincts when everything's falling apart. Rigby might not be good at planning ahead or following procedures, but he's incredible at adapting to chaos and finding solutions that nobody else would think of. The group follows him in these moments because his ideas actually work, not because they suddenly respect him as a leader, but maybe that's even more impressive. He can earn people's trust through results, even when they don't want to admit he's capable of having good ideas. That takes a special kind of intelligence, the ability to prove yourself over and over again to people who are determined to underestimate you. Here's the thing that blows my mind about Rigby. He actually gets smarter as the show goes on. Not in the obvious way where suddenly someone becomes good at math, but in this deeper way where you can watch him become a completely different person. His intelligence matures with him, and by the end of the series, he's basically unrecognizable from the selfish kid who started working at the park. Think about early Rigby versus late series Rigby. In season 1, he's stealing magical keyboards and lying about everything just to avoid getting in trouble. He's impulsive, selfish, and honestly pretty annoying by the final episodes. He's someone who can give inspiring graduation speeches, maintain a healthy relationship, and make real sacrifices for his friends, and that's not just character development, that's emotional intelligence. The graduation storyline is perfect proof of this. Rigby going back to finish high school isn't just about getting a diploma, it's about him recognizing that he screwed up and having the emotional maturity to fix it. Most people will just make excuses or give up, but Rigby swallows his pride, admits he was wrong, and actually does the work to graduate. That takes a special kind of intelligence, the ability to look at your own failures honestly and decide, I'm gonna do better. And here's what's really impressive. He doesn't do it in the traditional way. He learns geology by going to actual caves. He learns a foreign language by traveling to China. He learns physical education by competing in food races. Rigby figured out how to hack the education system and make it work for his learning style. That's not just persistence, that's strategic thinking. The relationship with Eileen is where you really see his emotional intelligence bloom. In the series, Rigby can barely maintain friendships, let alone a romantic relationship. He's too selfish and immature, but watch how he treats Eileen throughout their entire relationship. He remembers her favorite flowers, he sets up her TV as a surprise, he stands up to her terrible roommate, he waters her plants when she's away. These are small gestures, but they show someone who's learned how to think about other people's needs. By the final episode, they are married with kids. That doesn't happen by accident. Maintaining a long-term relationship requires emotional stability, communication skills, and the ability to compromise. The fact that Rigby can do all of that shows how much his emotional intelligence has grown. But here's what's controversial. I think Rigby becomes smarter than Mordecai by the end of the series. Mordecai gets stuck in analysis paralysis and relationship drama. He overthinks everything and can't commit to anything. Meanwhile, Rigby figures out what he wants and goes after it. He graduates, gets a girl, starts a family, seems genuinely happy. That takes a different kind of intelligence, but it's arguably more valuable. Progression is so clear when you watch the episodes chronologically. In Fortune Cookie, Rigby steals Benson's good luck and nearly destroys everything, but he learns from it. In Trash Boat, he makes another stupid decision but handles the consequences better. By Rigby Goes to the Prom, he's taking responsibility and protecting the people he cares about. By Rigby's Graduation Day Special, he's inspiring other people and showing real wisdom. What makes his evolution so impressive is that it's realistic. Rigby doesn't suddenly become perfect. He still makes mistakes throughout the entire series, but he gets better at learning from them. He develops better judgment. He becomes more considerate of others. He learns to think before he acts, at least when it really matters. The final battle episodes show just how far he's come. When the universe is literally ending and everything they've ever known is at stake, Rigby doesn't panic or cause chaos. He helps solve problems. He supports his friends. He shows courage and selfishness. Compare that to early Rigby, who would probably be hiding under a desk or making everything worse. And here's something people don't talk about enough. Rigby's influence in the group becomes more positive over time. Early in the series, he's usually the one causing problems that everyone else has to solve. But later on, he's often the one coming up with solutions or talking sense into people. His relationship with his dad improves, his friendship with Mordecai deepens, he becomes someone people actually want to be around. The really controversial part is that Rigby's type of intelligence might be more valuable than traditional book smarts. He learns through experience, failure, and genuine emotional connection. He develops wisdom through making mistakes and growing from them. By the end of the series, he has something that characters like Skips never develop: the ability to change and grow as a person. Think about the final time jump. Rigby has a stable family, meaningful relationships, and seems content with his life. He figured out what actually matters and built a life around it. Meanwhile, Mordecai is still figuring out his romantic life in his 40s. Rigby's emotional intelligence and practical problem-solving skills lead him to a better outcome than Mordecai's higher traditional intelligence. The legacy aspect is huge too. Rigby's kids will grow up with a dad who learned from his mistakes, who value relationships over status, and who knows how to adapt when things go wrong. That's the kind of intelligence that gets passed down through generations. His emotional growth creates a ripple effect that extends beyond his own life. What Rigby represents in this idea is that intelligence isn't fixed. You can get smarter throughout your life if you're willing to learn from your failures and actually change your behavior. Most people get stuck in patterns and never really grow, but Rigby shows that even someone who starts out immature and selfish can develop into someone wise and caring. The show ends with Rigby as this emotionally grounded adult who's learned how to navigate life successfully. He's not a genius in the traditional sense, but he's developed a kind of practical wisdom that actually makes his life better. He knows how to maintain relationships, how to be a good parent, how to find meaning and happiness. That's intelligence that matters way more than being able to solve math problems or memorize facts. Rigby's arc proves that intelligence isn't what you start with, it's what you build through experience, failure, and genuine effort to become a better person. His 110 IQ isn't just about raw cognitive ability, it's about the capacity to grow, adapt, and develop wisdom over time. That's the most valuable kind of intelligence there is. And if you guys liked our video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.